is. It is what it is.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited for this conversation just about our takeaways. As you all know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. I've been just excited for us to have spaces where we've had conversations that were centered around mental health and just so many different topics. And me, Philip, and Damien just wanted to put together a segment in which we really just kind of condense all the wonderful takeaways and tips, and maybe even some ways we've implemented in our own lives, the things that we learned this month, but then also things that will continue outside of this space. And so as you're coming in, definitely know that as in all other previous spaces, if you have questions, you have comments, if you want to just share something that maybe you learned from one of the segments, this is definitely that time to do that. And so again, as you are making your comments and questions, I will make sure they come up on the screen. But yeah, this is going to be a very organic, informal type talk. We just really want to talk about what we learned, and then just some things that we really want people to think about during this time. And so, Philip, you want to go ahead and share what you think, and then we can jump in.
Yeah. I first just want to thank you for having this conversation. I think it's super important that we close off and kind of summarize all the really important and powerful discussions we had in the past month. I remember when we first started in the beginning of May, and it was just me, you, and Damien, and we're just chatting about what we thought was important and kind of the things that we wanted to see and the conversations that we wanted to have. In particular, is really thinking about identity, I think, was a big driver in terms of how I thought about mental health this month. And I had 3 guest speakers on my segment, which is the week after the second week of May, and it was entrepreneur and teacher Jarima. It was psychologist Dr. Obari Cartman and author Ebony Lewis. And all 3 of y'all just had some really amazing insights on the power of relationships and identity in supporting mental health and defeating stigma. Specifically, I think about the story you shared with postpartum mothers getting together and forming community, or Dr. Cartman shared about hosting spaces where Black boys and Black men can have a conversation, can discuss and be open with each other, and the stories that he shares with about his clients as well. And also with Ebony, and with the book, the really inspiring book she wrote that affirms to Black boys and the Black community that it's okay, right? It's okay to cry. It's okay to have mental health concerns. It's just so powerful. And just thinking back on it now, or reflecting back on it now, I want to think about how can I use my personal experiences and my identity to make similar impacts with the Asian community. When I think about Asian mental health, I think we're very far behind from what the Black community has been doing, and from other populations as well, in terms of talking about it. I think is a really critical element, and it's a place that we should start. And throughout the month, I've been really trying to tell myself that's just the importance of being open and not feeling that cultural shame about not being perfect, right? And I think if there's any other Asians listening in right now, that's something that they can immediately relate to, this cultural idea of being ashamed, or feeling shame because we are less than this ideal version of maybe what our parents set us out to be, or some other factor. But yeah, I think my big takeaway really was just the power of identity and the power of community, especially with people that look like you or have the same experiences as you, or can relate with you in some way or another. And I think there was another, I think it with one of the other guest speakers, I think it was with you, Jarima. She had like a group too of, well, it was just another example of community coming together and being able to share it and talk and be open. I really love that, and it kind of, for my next steps forward, is thinking about ways where I can build community, bring the Asian community together.
Yeah, and I think that you hit right on like this idea of like, okay, um, when we even started these conversations about mental health, it was like, okay, so what does that look like in our own individual communities? And so, and that's what, in that conversation of stigma, I believe really brought to the forefront of like, hey, we all have things that we struggle with when it comes to mental health. And some of it is like our own personal insecurities we have to get over. But a lot of it is things that really are reasons why you probably have some mental health issues, right? So if you don't feel supported, if your neighborhood or just your upbringing or just the experiences that you have added to your like levels of mistrust of others and just having these different types of things happen. So as you get older, when you really do need help, you feel like, who can I actually go and talk to, right? And so I think that it's just, I just think that it's just a topic, even though May is Mental Health Awareness Month. These are things that we struggle and have to fight through all the time. You know what I mean? And for good reason. I mean, I would be remiss not to mention like the things going on right now in our country, and it's definitely, I believe, brought across the nation, not just for African Americans, but for all races, just a lot of things to the forefront, right? And so you have to be in a space to be ready to process that and be able to talk about it. And I've just seen, just through social media, conversations that have been productive, right? People who have really brought to the forefront, like, hey, this is what this is. And people coming in and chiming in, having productive conversations. And then I've also been a part and seen posts where you can tell people aren't ready to go there yet, right? And so because of that, it has created some friction and some, mistrust. And I just think mental health is something that we just constantly have to be aware of where we are when it comes to certain things, because especially when it comes to ourselves, this week alone, just to be honest, like I had some things that were triggers for me, right? And there were like a few days I just really just had to kind of go to myself and be like, you know what? I'm just not gonna be. I just need to kind of be for a second. I just had to reflect and write and talk to people that I trusted, that I can be my full authentic self without judgment, and I can be like, this is what I'm feeling and thinking, because I just think it's so important. Like you said, community is so needed during this time, and when more and more things are showing ways that we're divided, it can be hard to build community.
Definitely want to emphasize you brought up about just the importance of mental health right now during all of the trauma that's occurring. And I think about us, and we have experience with self-reflection. We have experience with learning how to control, maybe not control is not the right word, but at least how to regulate or manage our emotions, because this is something that we talk about, this is something that we do in our work. But then we think about the millions of other Americans right now who are feeling grief or feeling angry or feeling emotional, and they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to manage it. They've never had that training. They've never had the conversations, right? They might feel a guard or a barrier about talking about their feelings with other people. And it really hurts me because I want to be able to reach out to these people, but how do we do it, right? How do we do it when there's these guards up because of stigma, because of culture? And I guess there's not a easy solution for that, but just bringing up the point that this is super needed, as you said, beyond just May.
Yeah, and I think even hitting to that, I mean, I've had conversations with, of course, the big, it's just a lot going on in our country right now. And it's like, how do we build community? How do you build community within your own race? How do you build community outside of your race? How do you build community if maybe like, if you can't relate because you haven't went through the same similar, things. And I think it's just important and community, in which I think was a ongoing topic in each of our conversations, is that we allow people to arrive to their places of healing on their own, right? That we're not trying to prescribe to someone what it is that you need. And what I mean by that is that, especially a conversation about race, which I believe is kind of top of mind. And as we go into other topics, I'm sure we'll connect other things. There are certain ways you can connect to that topic, right? And so, and I could just use a personal example. Earlier this week, I had a conversation with someone who was not Black, they were white. And the conversation, hey, Dang, the conversation for me, when we talk about race, is not an intellectual one, right? It's not an academic conversation. However, for this person I was talking to, this is like a debate. This is a conversation of facts and opinions and all of that. And I think that when we, regardless, same thing, if we're talking to someone who's trying to get over a loss of a parent, right? That's a space I have, really have, I have never experienced that. I have both of my parents, right? And so I can't prescribe to someone who has lost a parent how you heal from that, right? How do you work towards that? I can be empathetic and I can understand my place in that conversation. And I think that's the same thing when it comes to race. You can't prescribe, if you're not Black people, how they're supposed to feel. You just kind of figure out your space in that and be able to see how you could be an active member and helping things to move forward. And I think that that's the thing as well when it comes to mental health and when it comes to just community and all, is that we have to realize the parts we play in communities, right? And support doesn't always feel like support sometimes if you are not doing it in a way that's respectful to who you're talking to. And so I think that was a big thing as well, because it mattered to me to hear your story, because I don't know how that feels, right? I don't know how it feels to be in an Asian community, and my parents don't necessarily even think mental health is a thing. I can tell you why it feels that way from my community, right? But I can't tell you why, and what works for me and what I feel might be the answer for me may not be the answer for you. And so I think that we just have to be very sensitive, and when we're coming to be the healers in spaces, that we really understand and allow people to feel and be able to share what they feel and not try to dictate how that feeling is supposed to be expressed.
I love that. And when you were sharing that, I thought about a Venn diagram where we have some overlap, but we are each our own circle, and we can use that overlap to empathize and to share and to build relationship, but we can also take our own pieces of the circle and use that to educate each other and inspire. So I love that.
Yeah. And so the conversation of stigma led to the talk that I led, which was on the truth about mental health. And so the thing that I loved about that space, which Lauren just hit on, was that mental health is not synonymous with mental illness. And so that we have times when we may feel different things that impact our mental health. And that doesn't mean that there's something inherent or biologically wrong with you, right? And so sometimes people don't even go to get the help they need when it comes to mental health, because they're like, oh, that just means someone's gonna think I'm crazy, right? Or I'm gonna need medication. But going back to the talk that you led, Philip, we learned that, certain feelings, as Dr. Cartman said, can visit us, right? This idea of, I can right now be depressed, right? I think people are feeling that. I can feel anxious. I can feel fearful, but that's not who I am as a person, right? That's not who my being is. At this moment, though, that's how I feel. And so I appreciate her just really highlighting that, mental health is not a mental illness. And the same way we take care of our physical bodies, we need to think about our mental bodies, like our mental health. Our physical health, we want to make sure we put the right things in our bodies, make sure we're active, make sure that we are being mindful when things are not working right. The same thing with our mental health. Like, we need to be mindful of what we're putting into our heads, what are we thinking about, what are we really keying in on, and then also knowing when something is off and doing something about it. And so I really appreciated that from just the truth about mental health. I think a lot of times people associate, okay, if I'm saying I'm going to therapy, that means there's something, I need to take medication or something is wrong with me. I'll never overcome this. And that's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there one or two big takeaway points in terms of action items you think you've drawn from that conversation?
Yeah, I would say the main thing I got from that was just the whole idea of, and I see that Dane put in there just like this whole idea of like a triangle, right? And so if things are off balance in one area, it can't help but impact another area. So a lot of times we try to, it makes me think about when people say, like, when you're trying to build discipline and say your work life, more than likely you're not disciplined in other areas as well, right? So we can focus so hard on these systems that work, but how about your health? Are you disciplined when it comes to your spirituality? Are you disciplined when it comes to your friends or relationships? Like, are you a person of integrity? So usually if one area of your life is off, that means you also should be evaluating, making sure other areas, because you can't be great in one area and not impact others. So this whole idea of the triangle, that our mental health is actually our mental, our physical, and our spiritual connected, and that we can't help but help another area get better if we're working on it, but we also can't help and impact in a negative way the other areas if we're not doing what's needed in those areas. And so that was a major takeaway for me. And then, like I said, the second thing of just really not getting into a place where mental health stops us from doing what we need to help us get better, because at the end of the day, like anything else in our lives, we're going to have our ebbs and flows, right? And so when you feel like you're in a low space, allowing yourself to feel it and have that community to talk to and being able to go and get the help you need, because then at one point you're going to be up, you know what I'm saying? And so I really just appreciate it. Like, man, you know what? Me taking care of all of me is taking care of all those areas of my life.
Yeah, no, I love it. And then when you drop someone else in your circle or your community might be down, that'd be a good way to bring them up with you. And that in turn brings the community up.
Yeah. And so I think it's just important, as we are even hosting this space, that another thing that came out of that space that I think all of our topics, which was really cool, really like lend hands to each other. And so the idea of representation, I think the fact that we're even leading these talks is major, because definitely in our communities, we need to have these conversations, these ongoing conversations, and what they look like in other spaces. And I just loved how what we talked about, what you talked about, Philip, with your panel, went perfectly into mine, and then us talking about the truth went perfect into Dane's, right? I'm just like, who can I run to? So now that we are clear about stigmas in our communities, now that we know the truth about it, like, now what do I do with that, right? What do I do with that information? And so there were so many nuggets I got from Dane. So I'm not gonna take his part. So Dane, what were some of like the really cool things that you, or major takeaways from your segment?
Yeah, so before I get into major takeaways from my segment, first and foremost, I just want to salute the both of you all for your willingness to take part in this experiment, take part in this endeavor, and to show up with the fullness of yourselves. This has been deferred, and even let me be more specific, Jarima, just you as being a visionary as it pertains to what this month could entail and how we could come together to make this thing special, to make it pop. Was just super brilliant. And I think as a collective, we executed this thing quite wonderfully. So I just want to kind of say kudos and congratulations, right? Round of applause, don't play with it, for us as a team. Now, yes, I absolutely certainly want to kind of talk through takeaways and take homes and highlights. But as a Black man coming into a space where we're talking about mental health awareness, and we're doing like a recap and a reflection, I feel like I can't just rush into all of the other stuff before first and foremost just kind of expressing and sharing my heart. I was up to at least 5 o'clock this morning looking at a bunch of different live broadcasts whereby people in Minneapolis, people in LA, people in cities that I never even heard of were protesting across our nation. And just so many different conflicting emotions and feelings concerning all of the nuances of that. But if we're going to rightly create space and platforms whereby we are raising up the importance of mental health, it's super fascinating that even before a lot of this stuff was happening, Philip and I were just kind of looking online, and we saw so many of our colleagues saying, I'm not okay. I'm not okay right now. I need support. I need help. And from that, we actually launched a whole separate parent hangout Facebook space for people to go to for tools and resources during this pandemic. But that's a real thing. So let me raise that up and let me call that out. Based on the state of race relations in this country, based on the fact that I am a Black man, and every time I see an instance of either somebody having a knee on my neck, hear me putting that in the first person, somebody shooting me with a sniper rifle because I was out taking a jog. I know this stuff is so nuanced and it's so multifaceted, but I'm just wanting to use this platform to just kind of express this. We're talking about mental health, y'all. And we're kind of venturing into a space whereby we're honestly saying that I'm not okay. It's that this stuff just ain't, it got me in a funky space. It has me in a weird space. And this is on top of this pandemic, right? Which already has forced me to be introspective and reflective in a way that's already kind of highlighted some of my dark areas, some of the spaces whereby I need some work, whereas I need help, whereas I need to run to somebody. So I'm loving these spaces that have been erected for the purposes of not always us having to come and talk so that somebody can give me an answer, but sometimes I just need to come and talk as a part of my therapy. You understand what I'm saying? Right? Me being able to share, me being able to see you all, even the subtle head nods and things of that nature is a part of me being real with the fact that when it comes to mental health and when it comes to the spectrum of wellness, right now, there are parts of Damien that are not well. And there are different emotions, going back to a statement that you made, Jarima, that are visiting me in a real way right now, right? So back to the commentary that I facilitated when we talked about who do I run to, this thing is super real and super personal for me right now, because as I raise up all of these different highlights and all of these different points that came from the different therapists that joined me in that space, I'm looking at this thing very personally and asking myself, number one, Damien, who is in your circle? So for Philip and I, the language that we use is village. This whole concept of village, us being the modern village, us even utilizing technology to recapture this idea of village is so important for us. Anytime when we talk about the work of doing character development, particularly for adults who have the care of kids as a component of what they do in their lives, either as a parent, as a teacher, as a mentor, whatever it may be. It's this whole concept of if we have more people who are getting these nuggets, who are getting these tools, who are getting these resources, ultimately, everybody in the village is better. Everybody in the village has the ability to win at a greater rate, right? Versus us having to do this thing in isolation. So David Timken came as a social worker working for the Chicago Public Schools with vast experience. And that was one of the things that he raised up, which was a point that very much deeply resonated with me. And again, challenging me to ask Damien, who are those people, those individuals, where are those spaces whereby you find elements of village that are helping you, Damien, in this season right now to process through some of these mixed, conflicting, all over the place emotions and conceptions that you're dealing with as a Black man in America, as a man who not only was dealing with the intricacies of the pandemic and all of what that's meant to me and all of the introspection that's been taking place with that. But then on top of that, all of these added layers of people who look like me and me even emotionally receiving this stuff as if it is me, and all of what that's bringing with it. I'm just really kind of forced to ask, like, who can I run to? Where is my circle? Who's a part of my village? And once more, that's why I had to start off the way I did. Jarima saying thank you. Philip definitely saying thank you, because you all in a real way have been a part of that village. Philip probably gets tired of me, right? Because we get on call and we're supposed to be talking about business. And I'm like, yo, I understand we got to talk about that. But first, let me talk about this, right? And again, it's not a thing, even though he's somebody who's going into a practice that could kind of give me tidbits and data, right? And even probably some level of diagnoses. But it's just like, yo, just let me talk, man. You know what I mean? Let me get it off my chest. So anyway, that circle, what we call village, was a massive concept that was raised up. I really appreciate how Erica Wortherly, and thank you as well, Jarima, for just kind of sharing some of her content. She has such an amazing spirit. More people need to know about this woman. More people need to know about her work, because it is so vitally important, particularly in this season that we find ourselves in, allowing people to unlock and tap into different realities of themselves, so that by unlocking those things and crying and feeling in a deep way, here's one of the words that Lauren gave me, feeling in a cathartic way. Right? I was like, hold on, let me research that. I like that word. I want to know what it means. That cathartic type of reality of being able to release, to hit the release button. She's just somebody who's big on that type of stuff. She has language for it that I don't have. So y'all look her up. She got a whole bunch of Facebook spaces herself as well. But again, for her, point number 2, she said we can go to psychologytoday.com and find resources, or find information for local therapists within our area, whereby if we need help, this tells us who's in my area who can help me in the area of mental health. And I thought that was really important for people that literally have a tangible resource, a website, to know exactly when I'm feeling something, where can I go so that I can connect with a person. But she didn't stop there. She said, you know what, for a lot of us in our communities, and particularly in disinvested communities, there are community resources, there are community development corporations that literally have therapists on staff. And these are certainly resources that people could tap into as well. Again, y'all, my topic that I was facilitating was who can I run to? So I'm approaching it from a very personal way, but I'm trying to raise up, y'all, my top 3 take homes from this conversation, because I had 3 panelists that I was sharing with. And then lastly, Joanne Chasman, she joined me as well. And she deals more with adult practice, working with college students, working with couples, working with senior folk as well. So anyway, long and short, her one of the things that she really kind of prepped me for before even going into that call was the fact of, Damien, I hear you saying you want people to be equipped with resources concerning where can they go to get help. But her whole thing was, I want people to be empowered so that they can go within, right? To be the balm that they need, to be the cure that they need, to build a particular level of empowerment that is necessary in order for them to deal with their stuff when they can't find nobody. Because even if I go to psychologytoday.com, it might take months before I can sit down and talk to a therapist. So one of the tools and practices that she used, also that David Temkin raised up, was this meditation practice, was this breathing practice, was this what she called grounding yourself. And in grounding yourself, it's an opportunity, and it's offering you the potential to be 100% present in your moment, to not have to be distracted, to not have to be worried, to not have to be anxious about what was or what's coming. Man, I need this for myself right now. Like, I'm gonna get off this webcast and I'm just gonna ground myself. I literally, like yesterday, I saw somebody say something about some yoga. And again, right now, I'm just big on like, yo, I need the right people around me. I need to build my village. And when she said that, I was like, you want to go live and do yoga together? So she said, listen, I'm zoomed out. I don't want to do no yoga with you. So my little feelings was hurt because she didn't want to do yoga. But anyway, man, this stuff is real. This stuff is important, y'all. And at the end of the day, Jarima, and then I'm going to shut up for a little bit here. Check it out. Y'all, we could talk about this stuff all day. You understand me? Everybody isn't me. Everybody isn't wired like me. Everybody doesn't have the same historical narrative as Damien Howard. But at the end of the day, it's some of us, based on whatever circumstances, whatever lived experience that we're going through, that are in dark, rough places right now. You understand? So at the end, like, man, maybe we might only have a few people watching this. Maybe we might only have one person that's sustaining and persistent without this webcast. Whoever it is, whoever is on this board right now, and or if you might watch this after the fact, I beg you to do what you need to do to make sure that you're okay. You understand? Like, who can I run to? When Lauren was on here, just kind of sharing from her particular level of expertise, when we had that amazing panel the first week, and we were hearing of how certain people get visited with certain things, that's the one that just really resonated with me from that first one, because it was just so ingenious the way that he shared it. Y'all, we could talk about this stuff till we blue in the face, but at some point, similar to Joanne's statement, her editation, we got to do the work of digging deep and being introspective and being pragmatic to actually do something about our hurt, to do something about our pain, to do something about our disgust, to do something about our disdain, to do something about this stuff that ain't right in our own lives. And in many ways, again, a lot of that stuff that ain't right is triggered based on how well we are in our mental space. So that being said, I'm just excited that we had the conversation. Thank y'all again for just allowing me a few moments there to just express the fact that if we're going to talk about mental health, give Damien a moment, give Damien an opportunity to talk about why in this space uniquely, I'm struggling in that area myself.
Yeah, I want, before we, close out, for us to just talk about what we're doing still after this. And so that's just a perfect segue to, I just wanted to share something that God put on my heart this morning, which was, so I have started doing these community town halls, and they've been really, really great for me and they've been great for, I believe, those who've been a part of it. But it's really just, to Damien's point, that we got to start really thinking about how we can, as a village, tackle a lot of the ills and things that we have in our community that's going on. So we've talked about things from remote learning to social justice stuff in the community to just the church, what's their impact in the community. And as he just spoke to, the last, I would say 3 to 4 days have been very emotional for me on multiple levels, right? My birthday was Thursday. However, in the midst of celebrating that, I still had all these other things top of mind, right? I'm like, I'm celebrating life, and there's so much death also around me. There is just a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain. And I'm one of those people that I'm a processor. The people in my life know that, like, I can hear something, and I may not necessarily in the moment give you an answer of what I'm going to do or have a response, but no, I will have one. I just may not have it at that moment, because I really just need to evaluate, like, how is this really impacting me? And so with everything happening across our nation, similar to you, Damien, like last night, me and one of my best friends, like, literally we're looking at things in Atlanta, things in Chicago, because downtown, like, oh my gosh, they went downtown Chicago. I mean, DC, just all over. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have people in my life who are actually driving down to Minnesota. So it's just a lot going on. And I'm like, okay, I am a person that if I'm uneasy, I have to act. Like, if something isn't right, like, what's my next step? And so God has put on my heart this morning, like, I need to have a community town hall. I didn't do one last week because of the holiday. And I also want them to be intentional. And so the one that I want to have on Monday is really going to be centered around justice and freedom. Because I believe that when we think about ways that we can respond, we got to be strategic, right? I'm like, I have a lot of emotions. I got a lot of feelings. I got a lot of spaces that my mind has gone, and I'm going to do something, but I want us to be wise and strategic in what that thing is. And so, to be honest, you all, similar to what Dang said, like, and we're going to talk next about the parent hangouts. I'm just creating a space for us to problem solve, right? I want to have a space in which, if you want to be a part of that panel, I put it on my Facebook and on my Instagram. Like, I don't have any assigned people to be on there. I have folks that I can think of, but I want this to be a very organic, like, what are we going to do to solve the ills that we see, right? Like, and I mean, we got stuff city level, state level, national. We got in the education realm, in our own communities and family. I mean, when we think about one issue, it's not just in that isolated space, right? And so it can feel overwhelming because there's so many things that are wrong, right? There's a lot of things that's wrong. But I think that we got to first reflect on what is it that we're really angry about, and what do we want justice about, and what do we need freedom from. And then you can start to strategize and realize what you have before you, like who has powers and seats in certain areas that we can get our voices heard. What are some things that we can start organizing now that can later have an impact? What are some short-term things we could do? What's some things you could do when it comes to talking to your kids, right? Because I don't know if you experienced this name, but my son has been like, what the heck is going on? You know what I mean? Like legit, we were last night eating dinner, and you know they had like they had everything on the news, and he's like, what's that man? Like what's you know what I mean? And so it's like so many questions. So now I'm like, I got my feelings. How do I express this to my 8-year-old black son? You know what I'm saying? Like this is what's happening, and how can I help him be educated, but also not fearful, and also be like, you know, I'm always speaking life into him, but also want him to be aware. And it's just a lot, you know? So I just think that there's so many different things we could tackle. And so I loved when I came across Erica's books, because I felt like it was just perfect of where we're at. Like, okay, how do we allow kids to just be angry? Express that anger, express what you're feeling. How do you talk about race? I saw somebody else did that post. I'm like, let me share that. Because I just think that when do you talk about certain things at certain times? I think all those things matter. So similar today, I'm gonna be quiet, but on Monday, June 1st at 5:00, I'm hosting a community town hall online on Facebook. It will also stream on YouTube. If you are watching this and you would like to be a part of that panel, I already had 2 people that messaged me, which I'm excited about, because again, there's no agenda. I'm just all about problem solving, and let's move. We will have next steps from that conversation. So it will be an opportunity for us to vent and talk and be real and raw. But it also is going to be a chance for us to say, okay, so now what are we doing now? Like, so when are we going to meet? Who's going to do what? Like, what resources do you have? Okay, what should we do in this neighborhood? Who can we talk to at the city hall level, right? Like, what are the things that we need to do? Because again, I'm all about making my voice heard, and emotions are real, but I don't want, when the smoke clear, nothing has happened, right? So, and unfortunately, that's been like a trend of things, that this is not the first time we've been here. And I believe that people are in a space where we can't allow this moment to not be something that really changes things, right? And so change comes with strategy and really having a plan and people making that thing work. So again, if you want to be a part of that, put in the comments, DM me, call me. And I'm excited for Monday, because that's where my heart is at, similar to Damon. Like, I'm just in a space of, what am I going to do? Because I just believe that it's a part of, it's important that we do something.
I want to definitely encourage the audience to attend, whether it's Dream a Space or the parent hangouts that we've been co-collaborating every Wednesday, or some other space that talks about mental health. Something that's been top of mind for me in the last hour and a half now is, Damien knows this well, but I'm a very goal-oriented person. And whenever there's a meeting or discussion taking place, the first thing that comes into mind is, what's the goal of this meeting? What am I going to come out of this? And what action plans will I have? But as a reminder to myself, and maybe some in the audience who are similar to me, that not every meeting or not every event or activity needs to necessarily have a goal. Like, these things can have very therapeutic or impactful meanings without you having to know what that is, right? It could be when you're in the space and listening in or participating that you come to some realization. And I'm thinking about this a lot now, because at 10 a.m. I had a meeting with a psychiatrist and some psychiatrists and medical students. And the psychiatrist who is leading the conversation, she was a director at a mental health hospital in the Northeast. And over the last couple of weeks, and I hope she's okay with me sharing this story, but I thought it was just super impactful, that she had some disputes with upper management. And basically, she felt like upper management wasn't doing a good enough job in keeping the staff safe from COVID. And upper management thought that she was being too dramatic. And so ultimately she quit. And it wasn't until a couple of days ago, she said that she really came to the realization that during that time, she was in fight or flight mode. Every single day when she went to work, she was really stressed out. She would check the temperatures of all of her staff to make sure that everyone's okay. And her actions was very polarized, because it was either we do it this way to keep everyone safe, or I'm going to quit. And she ended up quitting. And the thing that was really interesting to me was that she didn't recognize the state that her mind was in until after she quit, until just a few days ago when she was hosting a conversation on resilience. And while she was hosting that conversation and having the discussion, then it hit her. It's like, wow, over the last couple months that I've been in a really challenged place as well. And it was through this kind of like this side, I guess, the intent of the meeting of her hosting the resilience talk wasn't for her to be introspective, it was for the audience, but she ended up gaining something from that. And so I guess like just to bring it back, to encourage people to just listen in, even if you don't have anything to discuss about, listen in to the community town hall, or come hang out in the parent hangouts, and maybe it'll have a similar impact to you in terms of enlightenment or self-reflection.
Yeah, and I see, yeah, that's heavy. I see Alan on here. Hi, Alan. I actually wanted to say something to what he said. So Monday, we're doing the panel that's on justice and freedom. I'm actually coordinating. I would love to talk to you, Alan, because on the 8th, I'm actually doing something around the census. So I've been talking to quite a few representatives of the census. We're trying to get aldermen on there. Also have a community leader who's been very active in my neighborhood, Auburn Gresham. That's going to be a part of that conversation, because the census is definitely an amazing way for us to create change and be able to bring resources to our community. I think many of us don't know why it's so instrumental, and so and what we've lost in the past because we haven't done the census. And so I would definitely love to hear what he has planned. But again, on the 8th, that's something that we're coordinating now, a actual discussion about the census, because it impacts schools, it impacts families. And I just wanted to just share that, like, a lot of times when we think about the work that we're doing, I feel like it's important for me to address all factors that impact the families and the kids that I serve. So I can't say I'm coming to help your child read better and your parenting to be more, supportive of your kid and partnering with schools, and I'm not going to address the other factors that really impact, which are real things, right? So I can say, okay, we're going to bring this literacy program, but if your school doesn't have enough money to buy the books and the supplies we need for your book club, that is another issue we need to address, right? And that shouldn't, I don't believe, be in the hands of, I just think we just need to know our rights and know our powers. And so having the conversation about justice and freedom, the conversation about the census, people can say, like, how is that even connected to your mission or versus a book? It's all connected, right? Like it impacts me, it impacts the people I serve. So it can't help but impact our mission. And so I'm excited. So again, if you want to be a part of the discussion on Monday, if you know people that could be great for the 8th, I just love these conversations. And I love the work that Philip and Dame is doing. I'm just so grateful that God aligned our paths and the work that we've been doing. And I don't want us to move. So I'm gonna get off the town hall. I would love for you all to talk about a parent hangout, because that Facebook group numbers are booming, Dave. I looked up there the other day. It was only like 20 at first, and now it's in the hundreds, and people sharing bios. I said, okay, look at Dave. Look at him doing him with Philip, creating some stuff.
Yeah, to God be the glory. Jarima, again. So Philip and I were impacted by this whole concept of minimal viable product from a book called Lean Startup. For me, the first time I was exposed to this was towards the end of last year, early this year. And from being impacted by that, it's always this sense of running experiments and see what the community is saying makes sense. Or some other people would say the market is saying we would be willing to support you on. So let me tell you, Jarima, during the month of May, the community spoke up and stated that it's something about these parent hangouts that is a value add. It's something about these parent hangouts that's necessary, a space whereby we can go and we can be. Period. Be what and do what? Then no, we can go and we can be. Fill in the blank. And I love it because that concept is so it's so connected to how Philip and I actually run our business anyway. It's all about celebrating voice, celebrating agency, empowerment, equipping people, right, to be able to live into the truth of their own clever characters. So that being said, I'm just excited about this Facebook group. It got a super long name. The Parent Pandemic Hangout Space. And yeah, you know, to your point, it's a fledgling type of thing. So it's not like it's a whole bunch of activity. And Philip and I will continue to have this conversation as we're just really continuing to chisel out and refine our communication strategy. But I don't even necessarily know if our aspiration is to have that thing to be booming with a whole bunch of people. I would much prefer that it's booming by way of the folks who are already there. Let's engage, y'all. Let's use the space. Let's talk. And what I found in particular was a question that I raised up, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, just kind of concerning, again, race relations in America and how folks are talking to their kids about this. How are we making sure that we're even empowering and equipping ourselves to be in a state and have a disposition of readiness to have that conversation or those conversations? So in particular, that's just kind of one iteration of a thread that has just served me by being in that space and growing my village of parents who desire to have a village and to be a part of a village and engage in such a way. Whereas I'm not just coming to get, but I'm coming to be, and I'm coming to give, and I'm coming to be a contributor as well. So I'm just so excited, not only for that Facebook group, but then also we continued our commitment into June that on Wednesdays, we'll be having parent hangouts at 8 p.m. Wow. Sometimes I'm coming to that space after a long day of meetings and I'm just like, yo, this thing is real. But again, we're growing a village, and I get there. And this past week, I kept saying cheers because it was a little something in the cup. I can't talk to the people and let them know all those details, right? I was grown manning it out a little bit, but it's just like, yo, I had a people I could process with, that I could show up and live into my stuff with. So all of these unique spaces that Philip and I are creating for the sake of allowing parents to hang and allowing parents to be and allowing parents to vent and allowing parents to grow. I think it's an amazing value add to our growing community. The last thing I'll say about that is going into the month of July, especially. So one of the reasons we started this group was we knew going into the next school year, one of the pivots that we're making with our business is we want these parent hang-up groups to spring up actually across the nation, that we can serve any school that's struggling with engagement and like, yo, bring them to one of the parent hangout groups. We've gotten to a point where we've built out the infrastructure and we have a methodology that's in place that can not only do the work of helping to increase engagement, but in addition to that, could also do the work of raising up champions, right? That strategically can be those people who are going to other parents, or if we have teacher champions that we're raising up, going to other teachers and saying, yo, this character development, this character education, taking care of your mental health, all that stuff is important. And in fact, right, we have training and we have material that can help you to be developed in that way. So I'm super excited for how this thing is taking off and how Philip and I will be able to serve schools across the nation, even as early as this school year, by just iterating this concept across America, starting with Chicago, of course.
Love it. Love it. And so as you all see across the bottom of the screen, if you have any questions, if you want to learn more, Philip, I saw put in the comments, like joining the newsletter, going to their website so you can learn more and be able to keep connected with what's happening at Clever Characters, along with their amazing content and videos in which they are providing for families, which is super duper helpful. If you want to learn more about any of the work that I'm doing, being a part of the panels, coming to any of our online programming, we're really taking the summer to build out for the fall. And so I'm excited about some things that we're going to be announcing. But top of mind, Monday, if you want to be a part of that panel, please let me know. If you want to continue to problem solve and think about next steps, again, this is what this is for. And then we are still doing our regular programming for families. So again, you can stay up to date on all of that by visiting www.birthsintorbooks.org, joining our mailing list. And I make sure every Monday I send out like updates of things that we are doing. So like I started this talk, you know, I don't know how we're gonna close it out. What do you all think, fellas? I think that at the one, I think we can all say one go home thing. So I think the one thing for me is that I just am going to be okay when I'm not okay, and being aware of where I'm feeling so that I can make the best next steps, right? So there are days in which what makes me feel better is let me go for a walk in my neighborhood, right? Some days what makes me feel better is actually calling up my mom and just venting. And some days what makes me feel better is maybe having some grown stuff in a cup, like Dave said, right? Maybe what makes me feel better is like creating a town hall to have community conversations. Sometimes I don't want to talk at all. I want to play music, right? So I think we just need to be aware of what is helping us in that moment and being okay with that. And last year was pretty consistent with going to therapy and getting help, and not because there was a lot of stuff bad. It was because actually there was a lot of great stuff, and I didn't want to repeat a lot of bad stuff I've done, so I wanted to process that. So I think for me, I have gotten away from that because of just the busyness of life, but that's one of my next step action items from this, is that I know for me, accountability is huge. And so therapy was a source of accountability for me. It was an accountability for my mental health. The same way we're working out, my friends, we got like an accountability group. I have a financial advisor because I'm not the best when it comes to my own money. So I have him take it out every month, so I don't even look at it. You need accountability. So I think that that's the takeaway I have from this, is that I need accountability in every area of my life, spiritually, those that I pray with and I'm with every week. We need to just make sure we have accountability, not because I couldn't do it by myself, but I don't want to do it by myself. So it just helps to have those people that play those different roles in my life. So my takeaway for this mental health awareness month is to make sure my triangle has accountability in each part. And so currently my mental doesn't have accountability. So I need to get back to therapy because I've been doing the other areas of accountability. Now let me make the complete triangle.
I love it. And I think that's definitely something that I'm going to really emphasize moving forward too. I think y'all can tell based on my hair alone today that my mental state might not be.
I thought we were switching it up. I thought that's what we was doing.
Definitely take care of my mental health and, take a step back and do that reflection. And I think the other big call to action for myself is to look within my community and also outside my community with a special focus on how can I support the mental health of the Asian American community. Something as simple as maybe just like starting with chatting with my friends about something that we've never chatted about in terms of mental health, and then branching out and seeing if I can form some kind of group or safe space that Asian Americans can come together and chat about these critical topics.
Awesome.
Sounds like we got our next Facebook group. The organization. That's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody who checked into this at any particular point during the month of May, we have great appreciation for you. We are so thankful that you had a willingness to take out some time and join us, even if you just peered into this thing for a moment and went back out. We just want to express gratitude. We know that we're in a day and time whereby affirmation and gratitude has so much power. It makes so much impact. So we wanted to just use this platform and take this time and space to just say thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for showing up. Now, as it pertains to Damian Howard's actionable item, it should be probably something that's a lot more personal and introspective, but in a real way, the thing that's top of mind for me, y'all, is just doing my best to make this parent hangout space a thing. And that's parent hangout space via Zoom, the parent hangout space via Facebook, because the experiment during the month of May told us that it's needed. Now, there's an onus upon us to have a particular level of excellence to make sure that it's a type of a space that's inviting, that people want to keep showing up to. So those are just really some of the things that are top of mind for me and actionable items to make sure that I am showing up in a way that's supportive of my community.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for tuning in on us this Saturday morning. Again, I pray that, you all are safe. I pray that you are taking your mental health seriously. I pray that you will continue to stay in contact with us through our different avenues, through the parent hangouts, the town halls, any other work that you think needs to be done. We can work together. And again, if you have any questions, if, like Dame said, if you're watching this later, put it in the comments. We'll see it and we'll be able to respond to you. So enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everybody.